Chapter 169. I can't believe your idea of a vacation is to explore a literal, actual sewer system, Tala whines. This is so disgusting. Oh, it's not so bad, I protest. Honestly, this is probably the cleanest sewer I've ever skulked around in. Besides, Tala and I are both flying. We don't even have to walk around in the sewage. Why am I not surprised that you have a wealth of comparisons ready? Tala groans. I mean I wouldn't say a wealth, I backpedal. It's more that I was just pretty familiar with a specific sewage system that's much worse than this one. Ugh, God. Just thinking about it reminds me of the time I tortured that child murderer. Whoa, back up on that one. Tala yelps. Are we talking about a murderer who is a child, or someone who murders children? Gosh, I mean. Both, technically. Mal. Tala yelps. Vida tortured a kid. Hey, the motherfucker killed my sister. I snap at her. Besides, don't act like we don't torture countless human children. I knew people that were on the streets because our soldiers had killed their parents, okay? It's not. You're not any better than I am. I stare her down and she has the decency to at least look embarrassed. I guess. I never really considered that, she admits. Really? I ask. What did you think war does to people? Some of our own soldiers get fucked up by war, of course the victims are more or less being tortured. I let out a huff of air. I mean, I get that what I did was fucked up. Or at least I do now. Back then it was just revenge to me. I mean, after he killed Angeliant I was pretty fucked in the head for a long time. I killed him, I turned him into an undead, and then I ended up slowly beating the shit out of him while I convinced him I was going to do the same to his family. He was like 14? Progenitor's mercy, Tala whispers. Fuck. I shrug. I was only 16, I mutter. And I think my body was 14, for what that's worth. Shit, I've never told anybody about this before. I never even talked about it with Penelope. I'm just gonna say it, Vida's life was fucked up, Mal, Tala declares. That's a lot to take in. Your life, I correct quietly. You mean your life was fucked up? That was my life, Tala, not anyone else's. But yes. It was fucked up. I never told you the part of the story after the perception event, did I? After all that death there was a dreg swarm, naturally. I took it on myself to help with that. Then I got arrested by the local theocracy and spent 2 years in a secret prison being tortured over and over because they wanted me to let my sister's fucking soul get destroyed. There's a crash and a crumbling noise, and a dull impression of pain snakes its way up my arm. I glance over to her. I have, apparently, punched the crater into the nearby stone wall. I pull my mangled hand out of the hole and start casting a spell to heal it. There were good things in that half of my life, I admit. I've gushed about most of them. My mom, my hunter team, at least while that lasted. Penelope, of course. I'm grateful to a lot of people. But in much the same way you can only imagine the scale of suffering I'm talking about, I could only imagine the scale of luxury I have now. All of me now has perspective that I haven't had before. Vida gained what she wanted, safety, family, love. But Morosa gained something she wanted, too, a purpose. A goal. Something to dedicate eternity to. I'm going to conquer the plentiful wood for the sake of Liriope, and I'm going to conquer Verdantop because it's a horrible place that needs to be rebuilt. More tentacles uncoil from my core, writhing alongside my fury. I stop breathing for a moment, using Indar to respirate for me as I force my flesh into stillness, calming myself down. My tendrils relax, and with some measure of control over myself re-established I start to breathe again. I'm not a very good person, I say softly. But as long as I'm strong enough to protect myself and my family. Who says I can't spare the rest for a bit of altruism? Even monsters can do that. Can't we? Tala doesn't seem to know how to feel about that, let alone how to answer. That's fine. The question was rhetorical, anyway. It's something for the future, after all, since conquering an island can't really be construed as altruism, even if I think it's the best path forward. It is the path that makes my home a safe place to live, though, and that's the first step. I'll return to Verdantop, I'll wipe the Vrothizo off my island, I'll domesticate the forest, and then I'll tame Vodka itself. There's not going to be anyone getting tortured for the kind of magic they practice anymore. There's not going to be anyone starving in the streets. And there's not going to be any more dead children. I'll craft my own form of the progenitor's utopia, but with undead instead of my own sons. Those that want to keep this hateful, oppressive world the way it is will be the labor force that works to change it, until their bones grind to dust. And by then I'm sure I'll have a new vessel waiting for them. So, where do the Oberians play into this? Tala asks hesitantly. I don't know yet, I admit. But we'll see soon. We're close. Tala and our retinue of guards all stiffen up at that, their bodies tensing into combat-ready mode. I almost laugh, but I suppose we should stay quiet. I shove a tendril into another alarm ward, weaving a silence spell around it before pumping it with mana and wiping the enemy detection spell out of existence. They have no idea we're coming. You got the force barriers, right Tala? I double-check quietly. Yep, she confirms. The Oberians have poor depth perception, so I don't expect too many projectiles. Expect them anyway, I grunt. Trap emplacements don't need depth perception to work. Ah. Right. I don't bother checking on the soldiers. They know their business. I weave a persistent silence bubble around all of us, and we start approaching the last couple of turns. I sense about 80 Oberians clustered together in the sewers ahead, though based on soul strength I estimate only about 20 to 30 of them are combatants. The rest are civilians, workers, and even a handful of children. All of them are miserable. I suppose I would be too, if I was reduced to growing food out of my own conqueror's shit. Well, it's showtime. I grin, crack 4 sets of knuckles, and turn the corner. Only to come face to face with a wall. Ah fuck, knowing where the souls are doesn't mean I know the layout of the sewers. I led us to a dead end. Minor problem, though. Hey, I asked one of the soldiers, pointing in front of me. Is this wall load-bearing? He steps forward and gives it a brief inspection. No, my princess, he confirms. Awesome, I answer giddily. I guess it's time to do my best sky impression. Your best what? Terra asks as I surround myself with destructive force and step through the wall. Disappointingly, burrowing through the wall with motion darts is much slower than Sky's absurd propensity to treat solid objects like suggestions. I grind my way past the obstacle anyway, my mana split between actually making progress and silencing the otherwise deafening ruckus shearing away the stone would make. But the wall is thankfully not very thick, and soon enough I'm stepping bodily through it into a ratty makeshift living space that reminds me painfully of Lynn's old shack. 2 Oberians are here, 1 adult and 1 child. Mother and son, I think. They stare at me for a horrified moment before the mother screams something at the kid, wraps one of her thin, fleshy tendrils around a knife, and rolls forward to stab me. The kid starts to flee as I regard the weapon critically. It's not enchanted. It's not even half-decent kaiden. A stone knife. I reach out and catch the blade with my dragon-scale gloves. Go speak, I order. Politely greet them, please. Moving my grip lower, I carefully roll the knife to extract it from the Oberian's tentacular grasp without breaking the fragile blade. Go speak starts warbling out words in Oberian, which is a very bellowing sort of language. Low and musical, but in an annoying way. Oberians, like Thanatos, don't have their mouths connected to their respiratory system. The difference is that while Thanatos have engineered articulators in our sides that replace the speaking functions humans use their tongue and teeth for, Oberians have none of that, making them incapable of speaking most of the sounds that comprise the 2 languages I know. Therefore, their language just kind of sounds like moaning. The tortured soul kind, not the having sex kind. Go speak, tell them that I'm here to talk, not to fight them or remove them, I order, placing the stone knife on a nearby counter, and stood close to me. My soldiers file into the room, followed closely by Tala as Go Speak bellows out my declaration. Stepping out of the scrap-made home into the shit-filled street, I instantly send a dozen Obarians into a panic. Shouts of alarm echo through the area, and everyone becomes so concerned with running from me that they are hardly paying me any attention. Go Speak, how do I say shut up and listen in Obarian? I ask. He warbles something and I copy the sound with a spell, raising a hand and letting it go again as a commanding roar, loud enough to shake the entire tunnel. I'll tolerate being hated and feared, but I will not tolerate being ignored. Repeat the following, I order my translator. I hope and expect to leave here today without hurting any of you. I don't demand your trust or friendship, I only demand your attention. I will be speaking with your leader or leaders. Come forward of your own accord, or I will have to insist. The grating sound of stone rolling against stone is the only sound that answers me for a while, but I have succeeded at being heard. Even better, I've succeeded at being listened to. The Obarians know how fucked they are to see a queen in battle armor, and while I can't understand their words I can feel the terror in their souls conclude that cooperation with a genocidal enemy somehow offers a better chance for survival than trying to fight or flee from it. Which is an extremely pleasant surprise. Nobody actually fucking surrenders when I ask them to. Immediately, my opinion of Obarians has skyrocketed. In short order, 3 Obarians roll up to us. 2 men and a woman, I think. Maybe 2 women and a man? I'm not totally clear on how to interpret an Obarian's gender, and I'm even more useless than usual in terms of figuring out an Obarian's sex. Regardless, the one in the middle asks something, which Go Speak translates for me. He is tersely asking you what you want, Go Speak says. Ha! Tersely? That's funny, he must be trying to act tough even though he's fucking terrified. I want to talk, I say. About you, about your people, about how you live and what you did when we came to take your land. I want to learn what you know. I want you to be valuable, unique, and useful so I can make a case for ending the genocide of your species. The Obarians are briefly shocked, but quickly recover. They are interesting creatures. If I'm not reading them wrong, their emotions are much more dulled than humans and Thanatos. They have emotions, but they are less prone to immediately following them. They are more ponderous creatures, used to moving slowly and planning before acting. They are logical in ways I wish more people would be, myself included. I kind of want to learn their language now. They are asking for clarification, Go Speak says. True or false, you are part of a different faction that opposes the annihilation of their species. I would not describe myself as part of a different faction, I answer. This is not a political movement. It is a personal desire, and one that is locked behind the whims of my elders. But yes, I disagree with the generally accepted wisdom of annihilating you, and seek reasons to argue against it. The Obarians don't take long to agree, which again. Wow. I bet a bunch of humans would have immediately tried to kick my ass. The novelty of my situation is likely part of it. I doubt any other queen has even tried to have a conversation with them. They are just obstacles to most of us. Little mortals in the way, to be pruned from our perfect gardens. Having once thought I was one of those little mortals means I have a slightly different perspective, though. If they're in the way, why not move them rather than kill them all? It's not like we don't have the strength. Unfortunately, while the talks are peaceful, they aren't very fruitful. I want reasons to keep the Obarians alive outside of just like intrinsic value of life, since the queens obviously don't much care about that. They spend a while talking about their architecture, and yeah, I think their architecture is cool as shit, but if Lakana was going to be swayed by that she would have been after living in it all this time. Their building techniques, their magic, their industrial capabilities. All of it pales compared to what our colony already has in spades. We don't need expert builders, we can just decide to generate any arbitrary number of them whenever we want. Liriope doesn't need more people. In fact, it needs less people, because we have a resource shortage, and everyone who eats food and isn't us is nothing but a red number in the ledgers. Okay, so, no practical purposes. What about art? I doubt Oberian operas are going to be a hit back home, and unfortunately no one brought any instruments while they were fleeing for their lives. No storytellers even survived, at least not that they know of. In the end, we agreed to part ways for now so I can give them a bit more time to present their case. I'm not sure what happens if they can't make a good one. It never really occurred to me. I probably should have thought this through a bit better. Tala and I return to the surface and I immediately suggest swimming as our next activity, which she firmly rejects. I decide to go alone then, leaping into the beautiful crystal water and sinking down into the dark depths. There's a glorious bounty of undersea predators here that don't understand their place on the food chain. My ocean is bigger than yours, motherfuckers. Progenitor, it's so beautiful down here. It's so empty. Nothing but water and souls, a weightless expanse devoid of light yet teeming with life. My body is deliciously close to not mattering at all, moved by will and barely slowing me down. I seek prey only with my true eye, I kill only with my true tentacles, and I devour only with my true mouth. It's bliss. It's freedom. How I wish I could go a step further, to cast aside this flesh holding me back, to peel it away from me and dance without impediment in the darkness of this vast, cold world. I must be down there for hours, because soon enough I start to get hungry. I'm tempted to eat down here and keep going, but I feel like if I do that I may never return. So I surface with my latest catch. I've been having fun killing prey, eating its soul, then carving up its body and pulling the blood out with magic to attract more predators, who I then rip the souls out of and eat, etc. It's been delightfully chaotic. I'm really glad I know a water-breathing spell. I grab the biggest corpse I have on hand. Bigger probably means tastier, right? And fly up to the surface, which takes longer than expected. Still, I burst joyfully back into the air, my delicious Leviathan corpse cresting the waves immediately after me. I whip my wings out, casting a giant spray of water everywhere as I hear a terrified shriek and, shortly afterwards, my Leviathan is obliterated by a magical barrage of absolutely unnecessary proportions. W.H. Tala. I yelp at her. Damn it, now I have to go back and grab another one. Wait. Mal, wait. I'm sorry, please don't. Be back in a seconds, I grumble, then dive back under the waves. It takes a while to find another suitably large specimen, unfortunately, and it's dark when I make it back to the surface. Tala is unconscious by the shoreline, though she has a large honor guard who all make gestures of respect as I approach. I wanna see if this tastes good, I inform them, levitating the Leviathan to the shoreline. It's a pretty cool-looking creature, halfway between little disciple and bird, kinda. It has a beak for some reason. A group of them immediately moves to carry it somewhere, I suppose, as I walk forward and flick some water on Tala's face to wake her up. Mal. Tala jolts awake when she registers me, staggering to her feet. You didn't have to wait for me, you dork, I say, prodding her. Wait for you? Mal, I was scared to death. You were down there 2.5 days, I thought you died. Wait, really? Yes, really. I look up at the sky overhead. Holy shit, I'd thought it was just evening but... Nope. That is a different island from when I went under. Oh, I blink. Well that'd explain why I'm so hungry. Sorry, Tala. I cast a quick spell to launch all the water off of me, then wrap her up in a big hug. I thought you died again, she repeats. I know. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to lose track of time. How? How did you? Why did you? I was having fun, I answer softly. A lot of fun. Sorry. I just kinda. Sorry. I'm okay. I won't die on you, I promise. But are you going to change on me again? She asks helplessly. I suck in a breath, almost answering no on reflex. But Tala deserves better than that. Yes, hopefully, I say. She looks up at me, horror in her eyes. I give her a cunning look. We all learn and grow and change, I tell her. Sometimes I might do it. Jarringly fast, I suppose. It's definitely not the sort of change most people have. But still, I want to be better, so I hope I don't stay the same. That's not what it is, I insist. I'm not done. My body is going to change, too. I'll outgrow my flesh someday, Tala. Maybe not because of death, hopefully not because of death, but I won't look like this forever. In personality, in body, in everything, really. I want to be better. So I'm going to change again. I put a hand on each of her cheeks, hugging her tight with the other two. But no matter how I change, I'm still going to love you, okay? I promise her. You're the best sister ever. Nothing will change that. Tala lets out a shuddering breath. Okay, she says quietly. How about we get some food and sleep? Okay, Tala repeats. Were you awake that whole time? Yeah, eating souls always perks me up. Why no, it's kind of really easy to see why the theocratic military was always after V. I mean, after you. An unexpected joy fills me at the correction, and I laugh. It's not my fault the Templars never had a taste for good cuisine. Speaking of, we're having weird Lake Leviathan tentacles tonight. I'm sorry, we're what? The next few days of our vacation continue at a much more normal pace. Tala and I hang out together and play around, and I end up visiting the Oberians 2 more times. They aren't very fruitful conversations, but they're certainly interesting ones. Neither Mortist nor Vita was ever much of a social butterfly or I guess a social moth. So the long, drawn-out talks aren't really my thing, but I get to know a handful of the Oberian refugees. They aren't associated with the rebel group that's been periodically attacking the city, they are just trying to stay alive. It's a goal I can firmly empathize with, but I can't really do much to help other than bring them food. That's a choice which turns out to be a mistake. Princess, Nilakana sighs. I'm sure you've surmised that I have been asked by the progenitor to assess you during your time here. Yeah, I assumed that was the case, I nod. Then I stop nodding and signal affirmation with my eyes. Gah. In my defense, I'm super nervous. I just got summoned to Nilakana's personal queenly throne, and the War Queen has made no illusions of dressing up her audience hall as anything else. The most common decoration in the hall is melted Oberian armor. Then why in her name have you been aiding the terrorists? She groans. I would be in my rights to kill you, Mortist. Do you understand that? I'm supposed to kill you if you betray Liriope in any capacity. I stand up a bit straighter, a bit of panic rushing through me. She's obviously not killing me right now, so I assume I'm in the clear, but I get the impression this is very much a time to be careful with my words. I am firmly and emphatically trying to bring value to Liriope, I say. I'm not betraying it, and I'm not aiding its enemies. I swear on my soul. Is that so? Nilakana sighs. Do explain to me, then, what foolish nonsense leads you to believe that while you're stealing food to give to Oberian rebels. I swallow nervously. I kind of want to point out that the Oberians I'm aiding aren't actually associated with the terrorists, but I'm not sure she'll care. It'd likely be seen as pedantry. Savages are savages, after all. I want to bring them to the plentiful wood, I explain. You don't want them here and... Well, that's your prerogative, obviously. But I think genociding them is a waste of time and resources. If they have a reasonable alternative to hiding away underground and death, they'll be a lot easier to get out of the ground. Nilakana's eyes bore into me for an uncomfortable minute before she speaks. You found a hidden colony of rebels literally hours after arriving here, and you expect me to believe that you intend to do me a favor not by purging them from my lands, which you know is what I want, but by feeding them, so they can continue to multiply like rats. Your explanation has increased your status from traitor to traitor and moron. I carefully refrain from reacting, keeping tight control on my body with my soul threads as anger runs through me. Of course, Nilakana can read souls like I can, so unless something about my divinity makes that difficult, I'm sure she can see through me like glass. Still, the ritual of it helps me calm down a bit, and since she took a while to respond to me, I feel no obligation to give her a quick reply. I don't think all the Oberians should die, is all, I admit. I wanted a compromise between efficiency and genocide. I've been trying to find a way to let them bring more to Liriope than they take away. Because the act of attempting that, the act of looking for that, is important to me. Nilakana visibly relaxes at that, if only by a slight bit. Thank you, she says. That is a much better and clearly much more truthful explanation. But my darling child, part of being loyal to Liriope is trusting the wisdom of your elders. You are not in charge and you do not make the decisions. This is because, when I tell you extending that kindness isn't worth the effort, it comes from experience. That's my problem, though. I counter. You're saying it's not worth the effort, but if I'm the one making all the effort, why do you get a say in it? I don't doubt your wisdom works, Queen Nilakana. Liriope is glorious. But while it is the duty of the old to maintain what works, it is the duty of the young to seek new innovations. Nilakana considers that, her eyes twinkling with agreement. True, she concedes. At least in the abstract. I will answer your question in a moment, but first I want to ask, why this path? To seek your own way is well and good, but why do you seek this way, child? I hesitate, trying to find the right words. I've lived 2 lives, I say. 2 short lives, perhaps, but they were vastly different. I am a princess, and proud to be one. I love my people and my colony, built on the backs of our lessers. But at the same time, I've been one of those lessers. I have had my back stepped on. And it would be horrid of me to just forget that. I take a deep breath, starting to pace a little. What really irks me about our strategy is that it's only about Liriope. Everything else is a number rather than a person. And we do that because it's efficient, because it's effective, but most importantly because it's easy. Killing Oberians is easier than figuring out how to get the water we need peacefully. It causes less hassle. I hear that kind of language and I think we're just being lazy. And that's not something I can just ignore, Nilakana. Because it does not match some personal principle of yours. She prods. No, I answer firmly. It's because of what I am. What I can't let myself be. Nilakana, I am arguably the one below all's little sister. Do you understand what that means? What I might become one day? Lazy with other people's lives isn't just a policy to me, it's a potential apocalypse. I hesitate. She's old enough, so she probably also. Do you know my other sister? I asked quietly. Nilakana hisses. The island of life and death, she growls. Source of the clear ones. Birthing grounds of the black maw. Well, those are some new names I guess I can panic about later. I've got to table them for now, though. Not very friendly monikers, right? I press on. That side of my family isn't exactly role model material, but that's a deep part of who I am now. I want to be more than a mouth, but it's hard sometimes, Queen Nilakana. Even a few days ago, well, you know what happened. I lost track of time down there, just eating and killing. I need balance. My fellow Athanatos are great for that. I've never experienced more joy than I have at Liriope. But it can't just be us versus them for me. I don't think that's wise. The queen considers me silently for another long moment, then stands up. Well spoken, she concludes. I'm pleased by your consideration into these matters. The progenitor has expressed similar concerns, and that you have thought deeply about them is a credit to your character. I am satisfied by this explanation, Mulrosa. I let out a huge sigh of relief. Thank you, Queen Nilakana. However, she intones. I still have a question to answer. Namely, if you're the one putting in effort, why do I get a say in your actions? She steps down, her thin body towering over me with a weight beyond the physical. I could explain how the transfer of rebels into refugees does not benefit me the way you think it does, but that would obfuscate the true issue here. Namely, that I am the queen of this island, and my word is law. She extends a finger towards me, pointing imperiously down from her raised platform. Your caution demonstrates wisdom, child, but I want those creatures dead. Do you not wish to be a war queen, Melrosa? Do you not wish to conquer? Do you think you will win a war without a slaughter? You are unfit for your ambitions if you cannot swallow your fears and kill. And thus I command you, slay them all. Every last Oberian in the sewers, every man, woman and child. They die before you leave this place, Melrosa, or I will declare you unfit to the progenitor herself. I can't help it. I hiss, dangerously ignoring impropriety in doing so. Nilakana doesn't comment, though, simply waiting for my acknowledgement. Out of all lessons, I growl, this is not one I need to learn. I assure you. Then prove it, child. I'm not foolish enough to continue trying to argue with her. I turn and storm out of her hall, meeting up with a terrified Talanika who had been silently eavesdropping on the whole meeting. What are you gonna do, Mal? She stutters. I suppose I have one last question to ask the survivors, I respond furiously. I don't bother gathering my retinue. I simply get the means to communicate what I need from Go Speak, and descend alone with Tala. I don't want her with me, but I know I won't be able to leave her behind no matter how much I insist. I grimly walk into the Oberian refugee camp, my foul mood obvious even across the species and culture barrier. They all know something is wrong. Would you rather be eaten, I ask tersely, or enslaved? Ever the logical creatures, the Oberians all draw weapons. So I draw mine. A scythe of frozen air forms in my hand and I stroll forward, reaping the last harvest of an entire culture. Tala stays close to me and watches with horror as every Oberian in the tunnel falls silently into death, a cascade of limp bodies and destroyed lives. 3 days later, I offer Queen Lakana an undead army made from her own enemies. She's amused, but informs me that she prefers them gone. So I eat them all, every man, woman, and child, glowering at the queen the whole time. She watches me do it, and even in the face of my anger she is pleased. I hate it, but in the end I'm a daughter of Liriope and a daughter of the streets. I knew it might come to this, and there was never any doubt to what path I'd take. Chapter 170. That's quite a glare you have, little princess, Nilakana muses. You wouldn't happen to be holding a grudge, now would you? I flinch and look away, doing my best to ignore the squadron of soldiers dragging the many Oberian corpses out of the plaza to be burned. I'm not planning to take revenge against you, if that's what you're asking, I mutter. Nilakana's smirk grows more pronounced. You know that it isn't, she says. I grind my mandibles together in irritation, not at all in a good state of mind to have a heart-to-heart with some smug bitch who just made me eat a bunch of children for her amusement. I clench all 4 of my hands into fists, then slowly let them relax. Focusing on the physical still isn't comfortable for me, but it's a habit from my Melrosa side which I have to admit is helpful for evening out my mood. I'm furious, I admit. This was wasteful, cruel, and unnecessary. Both to me and to them. So yes, Queen Nilakana. I'll probably hold a grudge over this. To my ever-growing annoyance, Nilakana actually laughs at that. Bitch. Is she dumb enough to think she's going to be stronger than me forever? Ah, I suppose that's only fair, she chuckles. After all, I was using you to pursue a grudge of my own. What? I snap, turning on her. Is that all this was? Her amusement dies instantly, a dangerous pressure settling suddenly around me. Don't forget yourself, child, she warns. I swallow, schooling myself and my expression as best I can. Apologies, Queen Nilakana, I manage to answer. She emotes forgiveness and acquiescence, settling back into a more casual mood once again. Of course that's not all it was, she explains. Surely you're intelligent enough to see that. I sigh slightly. Yes, of course, I answer evenly. It was a test. Everything I do here is a test. You want to know if I'll obey you when we disagree, and I have, Queen Nilakana. But you should be intelligent enough to know that's not a binary trait. I'm more than either a slave or a threat, and I'm insulted to be treated that way. I'm a Thanatos. I have no intention of being your subordinate forever, and there are lines you could have drawn that would have strained our relationship less. I'm prepared to be chastised quite a bit for that answer, but no matter how foolish it is to say it, I want her to know who she's fucking with. It's difficult for me to play the demure little follower, dancing around with games of power and words like a good little princess. I don't need this. This doesn't help. Yet out of all the reactions I was expecting and dreading from Delacana, I never expected the flash of what is unmistakably love to bloom up through her soul. Oh, little princess, Delacana sighs, a melancholy yet strangely happy sound. You and your sister remind me so much of my daughter. Hate me if you must, but it's better than letting you die the same way she did. I come up short at that, for once my expression going blank because I actually have no idea what to emote. Her daughter is dead? Was she killed by Oberians somehow? These guys are kind of pathetic, though. Even the fighters. Ah, it's so easy to forget that you don't remember, Delacana murmurs. It's not a story I particularly like to repeat, but, well, suffice to say she was a lot like you. A powerful war queen with a loving soul, fierce in anger but fiercer when she had something to protect. Her plan was much like yours, Mortist. Rule with a gentle hand. Take the resources we need, but nothing more. Negotiate, placate, nurture, protect. It is a beautiful thought, it truly is. My daughter grew to be wizened, aged, and powerful, ruling this very island for hundreds of years with both might and mercy. But then she was killed, I conclude. And you took over in her stead, obliterating the species responsible. Well, not the whole species. The Oberians breed like rats and live on countless islands. But I'll not tolerate them in my territory, no. She approaches me, laying a hand on my head and ruffling my sete. No matter how kind you intend to be, you will be a tyrant, Mortist. You will be hated. You will have enemies, and they will come for you. The first may not succeed, nor the second, nor the third, nor the 100th nor the 1000th. But the reality of our nature is that you will keep living until one of them finally succeeds. The path you've decided on is one where you purposefully cultivate the engineers of your own downfall, allowing them to breed and spread and sharpen their knives as you give them the very meals they subsist on. Every Oberian on this island wants me dead, Mortist, but there are far fewer Oberians on this island than you will have trained assassins on yours. I'm not particularly afraid of assassins, I protest lamely. Delacana pulls me into a hug, and it's so unexpectedly genuine that I let her, my face buried limply into her chest fuzz. Oh, darling, I know you aren't, she whispers. But the rest of us are. We already almost lost you, once. Something about those words tugs painfully at my heart, prodding one of the wounds no amount of biomancy can heal. Do you not think you lost me? I ask her. I don't remember you. I'm not the same Mortist you knew. She chuckles at that. I am very, very old, child. I have known queens far stranger than you. Couples that have become one in body and soul, Thanatos that have purposefully driven themselves mad for the novelty, those that have made clones of their mind rather than true daughters. So you tell me, darling. Are you Mortist? Yes, I murmur quietly. Then you have the only answer that matters. I'll never argue against it. I'm also Vita, though, I protest. I know, Delacana answers simply. Hesitantly, I uncurl my tentacles from my soul. The War Queen doesn't react, so slowly and carefully I wrap them around her. She's anima-tangible, meaning the hug is truly complete. I wonder, idly, if this was calculated. My rage drains away in the embrace of a mother who lost her child, strict and harsh but loving in the ways that touch me deepest. I want to remember the cruelty she forced me to enact on innocent people, on children even, but I need the acceptance more than I need the fury. I suppose that, whether it was a ploy or not, it worked. So I have the only answer that matters. Thank you, Queen Delacana, I murmur into her chest fluff. I really needed to hear that. I know, Vita, she coos gently, patting my head over and over. There's no one quite like you in the world. But as unique as you are, there are those who come close. Those who have the same pains, the same worries, and the same problems, at least to some degree or another. Liriope has seen it, and Liriope understands. How could we not love our youngest princess for who she is? I squeeze her more tightly at that, relishing in the strangeness of hearing a fellow Thanatos call me Vita. It's oddly pleasing, if profoundly jarring. I'm still not gonna genocide my second home, I tell her softly. I know you're right. A lot of people will be trying to kill me. Killing them first is safer. But I'm still worried about the long-term consequences of that, especially if I'm going to be living on that island rather than in Liriope. I'll need people around to help me stay myself. Well, there are middle grounds between genociding the entire island and cultivating the instruments of your own future demise, I suppose, Nilakana muses. They are not how I run things here, of course, so if you sense any other Oberians during your stay, I expect you to kill or at least report them. But when you are in command, there's nothing stopping you from, say, cultivating controlled communities and slaughtering everyone else. That's a thought, I suppose. I have more enemies than I have people I want to protect anyway. I'll have to run that by Penelope when I meet up with her again. I'll think more on it, Queen Dilakana, I answer seriously. That's all I ask, darling, she says, releasing me from the hug. And again, it's just Dilakana. Thank you for assisting me with my island tasks, even if it was under orders you disapprove of. You're welcome, I suppose, I mutter, pulling my tendrils back into my soul after fixing my thoroughly rustled headset. It was quite fascinating, watching you eat, she continues. Particularly the way your soul opened up like a mouth. Even as old as I am, I continue getting to see new things. Again, I feel a need to blush that my current body can't make good on. You should watch me eat metal, I murmur, embarrassed. The digestion there's extra funky. She chuckles at that. Perhaps I'll find some I can spare for a snack, she says. I should get back to my duties, Princess Vita. Though you're welcome to come find me if you need anything, of course. Of course, I sigh in agreement, suddenly feeling profoundly exhausted. I'll stay alive, Dilakana. I promise. For Verdantup's sake as well as my own. I've now seen how Liriope mourns, after all. Ignoring the workers rolling away the many spherical stones my recent meals rode in on, I return to the mostly empty residential area and let myself into Tala's room after a brief knock. She gets up to greet me, pulling me in for a hug which I happily reciprocate. How did it go? She asks. Well, she talked me out of a blood feud, I sigh. So. Good, I think? I don't know. She's weirdly likable when she's not ordering me to murder children. I guess. She probably doesn't think of them that way. Tala hedges. If I'm being honest, I don't really think of them that way. In a weird way, I think she does, actually, I mutter. She just has decided not to care. Is that different? I give Tala one more squeeze before letting her go. Yeah, I confirm. It's pretty different, I think. The rest of our vacation isn't terribly noteworthy. We teleport back to Liriope after 10 or so more days in the Terra Basin, which I now know is named for the grief the island represents as the grave of an immortal queen. It's funny. Thanatos can't actually cry, but Oberians can. I wonder how many of them mourned their leader when she was assassinated. Was she liked, overall, and slain by a group of radicals? Or was she hated, despised and reviled, slain to the overwhelming cheers of her own subjects? I'll never know. No Oberians that actually lived under Dilakana's daughter are still alive. It has simply been too long. It feels like no time at all before the first month of my time as a Vitamilrosa fusion is up and I'm called to see the progenitor once again. I've spent my time well, enhancing my custom armor and crafting new weapons to take advantage of my strengths. I wear it all to the meeting with her, because I figure things are probably going to go well and I should be ready for my promised training to start. And if things don't go well, I'll definitely want to be as armed and armored as I can get. Though it doesn't escape my notice that the guards have absolutely no problems letting me be alone with the progenitor while armed to the teeth. Geez. If they have so little faith in my ability to hurt her, why does she even have guards? I enter her audience chamber, looking up at the functional goddess of our species, and note that while she's visibly grown over the past month, she is still tiny and absolutely adorable. Of course, I'm not crazy enough to let that stop me from kneeling respectfully before her throne. Milrosa, the progenitor hums. Vita, Princess of Blue. You've come before me looking like you intend war. Is that not what a war queen does, progenitor? I answer easily. The horrifying ancient thing in a painfully adorable, positively believable body barks out a high-pitched laugh of mirth and malice. Then let's make you one, child. I spend the next few days with the progenitor basically non-stop, demonstrating everything I know and being berated for it. Why do you weave arts like that, child? She grouses, zipping around my head like an oversized fly. It's beneath you. What? I grumble, pausing my four-armed dance. This is how I was taught. Didn't you come up these techniques? Well, maybe 1,000 years ago I codified something as crude as that, she answers, waving me off dismissively. But either way it's beneath you. Your techniques are beneath me, I deadpan. Yes, she hisses. You are mana itself. You don't need to wave your arms around to shape your form. Well, I mean, I guess I could adapt these forms to tentacle casting, I admit. No. She snaps, a telekinetic force bonking me on the back of the head. It's you, child. Just move it. You don't need to shape it step by step like a corporeal being. Skip to the end. Manifest your sculpture all at once, by your will alone. We will start with a basic light spell. Oh, that's the spell Penelope taught me to cast with. And also the spell Mom taught me to cast with. Cease your nostalgia and move your essence, child. Alright. Moving my mana is easy. It's the easiest thing in the world, in fact. It's absolutely no problem whatsoever. No, the issue is that I don't understand what I'm supposed to form with it. I cast spells all the time, sure, but that's a complicated step-by-step construction process, most of the memorization going to my motion itself with only a basic understanding of what that motion is doing. Now I'm being asked to twist part of me into a complex multi-dimensional structure that will, upon completion, slowly consume itself by turning into light. I basically need to understand the element of reality itself that defines light at its most fundamental level, and then become that definition. Vita's limited magical knowledge is useless here, even though that part of me supplies all the potential. Milrosa and, to a surprising extent, Melik are the parts of me which rule this task, as they're both trained in the skills needed to understand magic on the level of complexity required. It's still hard. I almost blow myself up a dozen times, and would have if the progenitor hadn't barked a correction at me each time. I feel like a child again, figuring out magic for the first time. But when I finally cast something without moving so much as a tendril, it feels like learning to fly again. The progenitor boots me out after that and tells me to master 10 other spells this way before coming back. I head to the Numa practice grounds and devour some of the training souls there to help me work through the night. I return to the progenitor the next day able to cast 25, and I actually get to see the architect of our race smile. Teleportation magic is the most obvious solution to your issue with range, the progenitor tells me days later. And you should be able to cast it near instantly when you comprehend the spell well enough. The problem is that you lack the power for it, as of yet. I'll need to eat a lot more metal before I have the mana output for speedy teleports. Yeah, I confirm. I was going to augment that weakness with my armor. Have it set up a lot of the power storage for me. A decent enough stopgap, the progenitor concedes. But the most obvious solution should never be your only solution. You know plenty of projectile spells. We're working on your aim today, child. And so it goes. I can't say I hate it. The progenitor is a firm teacher, without being aggressive the way Remus was. She prods at my limits and I voraciously try to surpass them. She's making me powerful, and that's all I've wanted for a long time. Souls are officially added to my standard diet, as well. Whenever a man dies somewhere on the island, His soul is taken and fed to me. And it's hundreds of impressively sized souls, every day. The progenitor makes it very clear that this is temporary. I can't expect this treatment when I return to Liriope. Denying the Mr. Watcher his meals for too long will apparently cause a perception event. That is a big part of why the men are kept mortal in the first place. I'll definitely have to inform Penelope about that one. The massive influx of souls does a lot to increase my power, of course. Enough that I start outgrowing my body again. I feel the first twitches of eyes and flesh tendrils start to emerge, though I suppress them as best I can. The progenitor and I talk about me, about what I want to be, about how to use this mostly uncontrolled biomancy to my advantage. We talk about forming a body of anima. She shows me things which spark my imagination, beautiful possibilities and glorious what-ifs. My body stays the way it is for now, because I'm starting to get a clear picture of what I'll actually become. I need to save energy for it. Our next pass over your island is soon, child, the progenitor reminds me. Yeah, I agree. I'd like to go. You aren't ready, she protests. Grandmama, I won't be ready for 100 years by your standards, I sigh. Which would rather defeat the purpose of me returning at all. An unconditional win, then, in my book, the progenitor pouts. Actually, genuinely pouts. I can't help it. With a chuckle, I do something I've been wanting to do since meeting her months ago. I pick her up and give her a hug. Ack. The god queen architect of our species sputters indignantly. D-done single quote he handle me so frivolously. Princess Molrosa. You're not making me explode, I note, nuzzling her chest said. That means you like it. Curse you, child. I laugh again, giving her another squeeze. Which she even deigns to return. We will all be worried for you, Molrosa, she sighs. To return so soon to the very place you nearly died. If you were not a budding goddess I need to cuddle, I'd have never considered allowing it. You're just happy the goddess embedded itself in a member of your family, I tease her. All this power is now yours to shape. Not if you go running off. The progenitor snaps. But that's why I'll let you. I do not chain my family. That is a promise I made to myself. Liriope is only worth it if the Athanatos can enjoy each other's company. What would be the point of an eternity together, if we are stuck scheming and feuding? You will love us, Molrosa, so long as we are worthy of love. And in turn, we shall love you. This is, undoubtedly, my favorite society of genocidal bug monsters, I assure her, finally putting her down. Thank you, Grandmama. I love you very much. Get down there and prove us wrong, child, the progenitor insists. Don't you dare die on us. I won't, I assure her. I promise. On the night of our pass over the plentiful wood, I find myself strolling through the lower levels that Penelope turned into a mass graveyard when we first came up here. There's no sign of it anymore. The corpses have all been converted into biomass and replaced. Everything is working with the efficiency that it once was. Even down on the lowest level, the Vrothizo pits are full and ready to drop. Though they won't be dropping on Verdantop, of course. Never again. Last chance to back out, Tala half jokes. She's here to send me off, because she's wonderful, but she won't be joining me. She doesn't really want to take over an island, and I don't really want her to be in danger with me. Declined, I'm afraid, I smirk at her, giving her a shoulder-to-shoulder squeeze. Thanks for putting up with all my weirdness, Tala. Hey, don't underestimate me, she prods back. Someday I'll be weirder than you can even imagine, and you'll have to pay me back the favor. I chuckle, glancing down the drop tube I'll be making my entrance from. The tips of Skyhope's walls are visible below. We'll pass over it soon. I look forward to it, I tell my sister honestly. You'd better drop by to visit when we pass by, okay? I will, I promise. Whenever I have time, anyway. Make time. I'm your sister. I laugh. I'll be busy, Tala. And hey, you can always come visit me. Just make sure to come armed, because I'll put you to work. You're impossible, Tala groans. According to the predominant local religion, yes. I look down the drop chute again, even though I can already feel with my soul sense that Skyhope is close enough for me to take the plunge. I linger a bit longer anyway, adjusting my armored gloves, double-checking the 6 metal weapons on my belt, filling up the last possible concentrations of my body's mana capacity, preparing all the spells I think I'll need, and most importantly of all, staring at my sister for the last time in what will doubtlessly be far too long. I'll make it work, I tell her. Before you know it, the whole island will be under control and you can visit safely whenever you want. I believe you, Tara sighs. But I'm still allowed to worry. I pull her in for one last forearmed squeeze, hugging her almost tight enough to crack her kite in before finally releasing her. I love you, Tala. Love you too, Mal. I jump, letting gravity take hold as I drop through the air, wings out to stabilize myself in the moments before I take control of my speed. Thousands of souls look up when I do, their focus on me and only me. Hiveric nights are often brutal slugfests, soldiers and eggs dropped in countless numbers and sent to a desperate slaughter. The incomprehensible might of an alien nation collapses upon Verdantop on days like this. But today, Liriope sends only me. It doesn't take long for me to clear the range of my island's hull defenses, meaning an answer from my other island will be incoming soon. I wonder what they'll do in the face of something new like me. Just a single person, dropping slowly and making no aggressive moves. Of course, the first line of defense is the Templars, so it'll probably be violence. To my surprise and mild annoyance, it isn't. One of Brahm's clones manifests a good distance away and manually flies towards me, presumably since just appearing beside me would likely seem aggressive. I stop falling and hover in place, putting on my most imperious expression as I let him come to me. Not that the humans will be able to read my expression, of course, but it's the principle of the thing. Greetings, Brahm says. There wouldn't happen to be any possibility of negotiation or communication, would there? There would, actually, I confirm. Hey, Brahm. How's things? It doesn't take long for me to pinpoint his real body down in the city and taste his delicious surprise. Have we? No. The Lich? In the flesh, I confirm. Though I expect you to address me as Princess Vita, or Princess Molrosa. Either is a proper title. You really did possess one of Hiveric's spellcasters, then, he concludes. So what is your purpose here? You fought with us against Hiveric just a few months ago. Well, things have obviously changed, I tell him. It's not so bad up there. In fact, it's way better than the shit city you protect. So I'm here to fix things. You wouldn't happen to be willing to surrender, would you? To the living fusion of our two worst enemies? Brahm spits. A Lich and a Hiveric caster? Ah, there it is. Now things are familiar again. I suppose if that's still all you can see, that answers my question well enough. Will I have to remind you of your impotence, then? You couldn't even touch me when I was still mostly human. I float to the side to dodge a compressed air projectile from below, the smile in my eyes growing wider. I know I cannot fight you, Lich, Brahm intones, but Kashia has no such. I teleport, not bothering to listen to the rest of his drivel. Appearing directly in front of Kashia the Maelstrom, I activate one of my favorite new spells, etched into the metal of my armor. It's a mana control spell, a simple bit of metamancy designed for one thing and one thing only, repelling any mana it detects, pushing it away to form a wide, magicless bubble around me. But of course, like most magic detection methods, it only senses Watcher mana. So I fill the remaining space, making my own little world of blue. I've made bubbles of mana before, but they only last for a split second, enough to disrupt any spell cast around me before being inevitably annihilated in a thunderclap of destruction. The Mistwatcher is simply too massive, too omnipresent, and I could never keep up with him for long. But now, there is no annihilation, just the creation of a false barrier which keeps Watcher mana out and my mana in. The bubble only extends about 6 feet in every direction, but that's more than enough. The moment Kashia's momentum flings her inside of it, she becomes utterly powerless. Her soul tries to channel, tries to use its talent, but my mana won't simply obey some drunkard. Why would I let her use me to attack myself? Her flight, her whirlwind, her offense, her defense. All of it is stripped away in an instant. I catch her by the neck, since I'm kind enough to not let her fall. Hey, Kasia, I greet her politely. Brahm was just bragging about you. Her only response is a bunch of weird noises, though, gurgling sounds and panicked clawing at my hand. That's kind of out of character for her. Why? Ooh, right, she's choking. Humans choke when you grab their neck. Whoops, sorry, I apologize, loosening my grip a bit. I just didn't want you to fall. A dozen Brahm clones materialize just outside my barrier and try to strike it, but I ignore them since there's nothing solid for them to strike and they obviously just dissipate whenever they touch my mana. The dude never learns. What are? Kasia coughs. How are you doing this? I laugh. Let me answer your question with a question. Back during Skyhope's perception event, did you ever try to cast something on the Mistwatcher directly? What? She hisses. You heard me. Did you try it? Just to see what happens? Nothing happens, she hisses. You can't use a god's gifts against. She cuts herself off, terrified of the words that were about to come out of her mouth. I laugh again. Against a god? I finish for her, drinking in every beautiful moment. I've wanted this for so long. The chance to humble these smug fucking bastards. To utterly and completely crush them, to see their damn faith drain from their eyes and get replaced with terror. It's intoxicating. I look deep into her soul, greedily indulging myself in every fear, every draining hope of the smug drunkard bitch who put me in prison all those years ago. Then I scowl, because I find something that shouldn't be there. A red, pulsing segment of soul that I could have sworn wasn't part of her the last few times I peered into her. What the heck is this? It's in the emotional attachments section, growing like a tumor. And it's also connected to where mana is channeled. What? It's like half talent, half animancy scar, which... Oh, god damn it. I do a quick check through the souls of the countless people below me, finding that nearly a third of them have a similar red pastel leaking wretched subtleties into their higher brain functions. Yet there's no sign of the man himself, the only culprit on the island I can imagine to be responsible for this particular brand of cascading soul tumors. Wherever he isn't in Skyhope. My line of thought is swiftly tangled, however, when an agitation of mana near me forces me to prepare for an incoming teleportation spell. I turn to it and watch, my body tense and heart racing, as she appears before me. Her white and blue scales glimmer in the spotlights being directed up at us through the darkness. Her wings dwarf mine, each one extending farther than she is tall, the interlocking plates looking more like one of my metal automations than anything truly alive. Her powerful tail curls underneath her, its hundreds of scaled tendrils twisting with seemingly chaotic intent, yet in reality each grasps and shapes Watcher mana with unparalleled precision. And within it all rests her soul, a fortress of horrifying efficiency. No. Not a fortress. A prison. Its defenses all point inwards, after all. Penelope, I greet her, my heart tearing asunder. Vita, she answers professionally, the small shade of longing in her soul expertly quarantined away. It's good to see you, I say honestly, though I think you have an Ars problem. I know, she growls. He has picked the most disruptive possible time to make his move. So I need to know, are you here to help us? I'm here to conquer you, I answer. So yes. She's displeased by my answer, and even goes so far as to clench her fist to show it. The blue in her scales fades away, leaving only white. What? I ask. Mad because I stole your plan? Don't worry, I've talked the gals upstairs out of the whole genocide bit. There will be no more Vrothizo heading our way. We'll take over like we always intended, trade resources to Liriope in exchange for peace, and everything will be peachy keen. Penelope glances at the High Templar in my grasp and the nearby manifestation of Brahm, floating carefully into my bubble of mana. Naturally, I allow her to transfer over to using it, happily filling her soul and admiring her shell from the inside. We should talk about this elsewhere, Penelope declares. With both of us here, Enteritus is likely to make her move. Who's Enteritus? I ask, and then the sky explodes. Chapter 171. The purple spider web cracks erupt all around us, fractal tears in the face of reality which herald the imminent judgment of Enteritus' unfathomable talent. It's hard to guess who the woman was before ours broke her soul into pieces and forged her into a splice, but her talent must have been legendary even before it was twisted into the chaotic destruction she now wields. It's one of the few things on this island I still truly fear, yet Vida responds not with trying to avoid it, but by blocking it head-on. She pulls me towards her, seemingly ignoring my massive weight, two chitinous arms squeezing me close as the sky flashes with ruin, a deafening screech wailing in our ears as the world itself protests the power being forced upon it. The shock wave hits us point blank, yet whatever Vida does to protect us from it holds. I suppose that makes sense. It's difficult to understand exactly what Enteritus' talent does, given how it conforms to the known school of magic. Yet it is at its most dangerous when applied to a target directly, and within Vida's bubble of blue it simply cannot form. There's no sense risking a prolonged engagement here, though, not when I barely even know for certain who this Vida even is. She lets me use her mana to craft a teleportation spell, the many tendrils of my tail twisting to pull the three of us, Cassia included, away from danger and back to our base, deep in the forest. The one we made together, when we were two very different people. Such melancholy is irrelevant, so my thoughts pull away from it the moment I notice its presence. We've arrived in my personal teleportation room, created as such so that there's never a need to recalculate an endpoint due to obstruction. It's just a small, square, stone room with a few windows, designated to be kept empty at all times. Keep her impotent, I order Vida, not that I expect her to release the High Templar. I need a collar, now. And here I was certain you preferred to hold the leash, my lady, Nugas jokes in that sing-song way of hers, entering the room with the metal prisoner's collar that I requested. How was she already here with it ready? She's gotten quite skilled with these sorts of predictions. Thank you, Nugas, I say, leaning down to pat her head the way she likes with one massive hand as I accept the collar with my other. I'm almost 7.5 feet tall now, nearing the end of my final stages of growth. I've had to mold a few times, which is frustratingly inefficient and a generally unpleasant meal, but the added mass has been extremely useful in terms of strength and power storage. I'll soon hit a sweet spot, however, where the extra mass starts to become a weight problem faster than it can increase my strength. When all is said and done, I will be 7 foot 9 inches tall when standing on my legs, though of course I'm capable of nearly doubling that if I lift myself up on my tail instead. Vida adjusts her grip to allow me to secure the collar on Cassia, which I quickly clasp around her neck. The mana field she's somehow created dissipates, the Mistwatcher's essence rushing in to fill the space. Vida drops Cassia, letting her speak. You bastards won't. I am, of course, uninterested in what she has to say, so I manually activate the collar and knock her unconscious, catching her as her eyes roll back and she falls. With one hand, I offer her to Nugas. Take her to Theodora to get her fixed, I grunt. After Theodora finishes, inform her that Vida has returned. Yes, my lady, Nugas bows briefly, taking the High Templar in both arms and walking out of the room with a self-satisfied smirk. Even now, I never know what's on that woman's mind. Besides me, that is. So, Vida mumbles, scratching at the front of her armor with a clawed finger. She has very interesting fingers now, 6 of them with an alternating flat sharp structure. Clearly unnatural. Her body is likely entirely biomantic in design. My talent desperately flicks through diseases that might ravage her body, but each and every one of them comes up impotent. I'm probably going to end up running subconscious mental simulations for weeks trying to figure out something that will bypass her insane immune system. That will be annoying. My talent's stubborn hold on my mind is difficult to purge for long. I have to optimize my habits to ignore it, rather than simply flushing the urges away. Yes, it's been a long time since you were back here, I say. Let's give everyone a chance to see you again. Melik's old squad is even here, minus the older gentleman. Wait, really? Vida asks, her compound eyes shimmering in the light as minute changes to their configuration play upon the surface. I suspect that has some significance, so I commit it to memory. The rest of her face looks like a porcelain doll that hasn't been painted yet, so if there's a way to gain clues from her face, this is the only option available to me. Yes, I confirm. This way. Well, I wanted to. Oh. I mean, okay. She somewhat awkwardly shuffles after me for a moment, seems to catch herself, and then walks with such supreme confidence that I come very close to laughing. What a sudden shift. Her jittegrade legs and clawed feet means she walks quite differently from a human, yet she moves like a natural, a fluid grace that is unmistakably practiced to perfection. The idea of Vida as anything resembling noble is endlessly entertaining in that impossible dichotomy sort of way, yet here she is, activating it like a lever has flipped inside her head. Her squad informed me that she performed something similar with Melik, copying him almost perfectly without needing to practice, as their memories merged. Yet they reported that, over time, Melik seemed to disappear as Vida moved to the fore. It's been nearly 3 months since she got this body, however, and yet here we are. A Vida with some semblance of propriety, if not outright vanity, walks before me. I'm not sure how to factor that into my calculations. It is, in a word, baffling. Though I do note with amusement that, while she is taller than her previous bodies, it's only by a few inches, and as such our height difference has expanded drastically. Which is good. I've always liked how small she is. I let none of this show on my face, of course. Out of habit more than anything. Vida's ability to read souls is doubtlessly better than ever, so she has no need of my face. It's difficult to tell if she's even paying attention to it, what with the way her bulbous, sapphire eyes seem to be looking in every direction at once. Perhaps they are. I upgraded my vision significantly, but it did not occur to me to upgrade the field of that vision, to create multidirectional sight and replace my eyes wholesale with superior systems. I doubt the result would be worth the effort, however, particularly in retraining my brain to work with the new signals. Now that my soul has already been shredded twice over, I've been much less hesitant to work on upgrading my brain, but it's still an exceptionally slow and careful process, demanding vastly more testing and experimentation to understand than any other biological problem I've tackled. Unfortunately, this is a process I no longer have the time for, since I have been busy planning a war. Incidentally, planning a war is very, very difficult when you've enslaved your soul to a series of moral principles. I can't use biological weapon attacks that have any chance of propagation. I can't permanently harm civilians. I can't mind control people to my side. I can't interrogate prisoners effectively, nor use them as experiments, nor otherwise bring them unneeded suffering. I can't allow other people to do any of these things either. I'm no general, but most of the things my grandfather taught me on how to win wars simply aren't possible anymore, because of how immoral they are. I've been reduced to collecting creatures from the forest to make into a partially undead, partially animantically domesticated monster army, which is inefficient at best. Were I capable of acting without restraints, I wouldn't even need an army. That is, I suppose, part of why it's for the best that I'm restrained. But Vida clearly isn't, and nor do I suspect she'll tolerate being treated like a subordinate. She is outside my realm of control. Her casual domination of multiple High Templars proves she is, easily, the most powerful person on this island. She must not be allowed to act by her own fickle whims, and therefore I need to find ways to tie her to me. Hey, boss, a familiar voice asks me. Is that, why no. It's Lynn. Good. I arranged events so that she'd be here. I watch Vida's expression carefully, memorizing the way her eyes twist and change. This will be my reference for a joyful expression. Mom. Vida cheers, rushing forwards and scooping the thief up into a crushing, spinning, forearmed hug. To her credit, panic only washes over the woman for a moment before she returns the embrace, laughing as her alien daughter twirls her with delight. Vida. Lynn greets her cheerfully. Hey, girl. Wow. You're looking a little, exoskeletal? Thanks, wish I could say the same. Gosh, I'm so glad to see you, Mom. Is everyone okay? Rowan and the kids? They're all living here with us, yeah, Lynn confirms. This place has gone from camp to village to town in no time flat. And then back to camp. Vida asks, looking around. We're surrounded largely by tents and defensive emplacements, since this area is near the edge of our little burgeoning nation. It looks a lot nicer when you get further in, Lynn assures her. So, bug lady, huh? Or are you a bugman? Bug lady, Vida confirms. I'm a princess now. Oh, congratulations, Your Majesty? Vida makes a warbling, hissy noise that I can only assume is what her species considers laughter. You don't need to call me by my title, Mom, Vida assures her. Neither do you, Penelope. I nod, doing my best to look thankful as I peel through the obvious implications of that. It means she'll expect most people to use her title. More confirmation of the differences I felt earlier. How much of Vida is in there? Irrelevant. I need what she has become more than I need who she used to be. I do not love her, so what's the sense in missing her? Besides, it's not as though I can complain, considering how little of my old self resides within me. I just always found her lack of propriety to be refreshing. Her bluntness, the way she always speaks her mind, the way she could see into my very soul and know it completely and simply allowed me to have the same insight through her own forthright nature. It was the opposite of everything I despised about nobility. She refused to play games with my heart, and that is how she took it. Has that changed? Has she become the very thing she hated? Hey, Penelope. Vida calls, apparently having noticed me staring at her. Wanna see how my freaky mouth is constructed? I blink. Yes, I answer honestly, and she opens up the 4 mandibles under her chin to extend a long tongue-like structure covered in blunted teeth. It's beautiful and fascinating, and I don't have time for this. Ours is growing his power base with every second I waste here. Pretty wacky, huh? Vida chuckles. Indeed, I answer flatly. Now come along, there are many more people who I'm sure will be happy to see you. Oh, I mean. That's great, I really want to see everyone, but, let's go then, I insist uncharacteristically, turning to leave. Impolite. I'll have to investigate that impulse later so I can fix it. Penelope, I mostly wanna see you, Vida insists, her mouth still hanging as it's unrelated to her speech. I stop, glancing back at her. You are seeing me, I answer, my tone clipped. This is what I am. We'll sit down later to discuss the Ars situation and the upcoming war, but introductions come first. Her tongue slurps back up into her head and her multi-jointed jaws snap shut. Her eyes start making an odd movement, but then, after a moment's consideration, she nods instead. Mixing human and Hiveric expressions, then. We exit together, Lynn following us with a blank expression of her own. So, I don't sense Vildra anywhere, Vida comments idly as we walk. I destroyed her, I answer simply. It wasn't worth the risk keeping her around, even with her forcibly obedient due to animancy. The false belief that animancy is infallible is what allowed me to kill her, after all. Yeah, I suppose so, Vida says. Though I might have suggested collaring her like you did with Cassia. Well, I did collar her. I just decided to kill her afterwards. The risk still would have been too high, I insist. Gagra is clever. Oh, Vida says. Well, that's fine. That's your call to make, I guess. I hope it was cathartic, at least. Unfortunately, I suspect it was, I tell her. Because I've blocked my memory of performing the act and tightened the revulsion response to my natural sadism in response to it. Oh, she says again. You're, still making adjustments, huh? I fell down the slippery slope so long ago that at this point I consider my chances best if I try to right it somewhere, as opposed to a futile climb back to the top. She pauses, her expression still unreadable to me. Though it certainly isn't joy. Okay, she answers finally. Though we're gonna have a talk about basic and advanced pneuma safety. Pneuma? I ask, not recognizing the language. Animancy, she explains. Sorry. The Thanatos have different names for everything. Ah. Well. Far be it from me to deny learning the standardized regulations from an entire biologically engineered society of animancers. And that's what you are, I take it? I ask. A Thanatos? I've heard to kill from above use the term. Ha ha, yeah. Oh man, he's gonna shit his pants when he sees me. I'm afraid to kill and I have a similar fashion sense, regarding that matter. She briefly regards my naked body with about the same general disinterest as I'm used to. Right, yeah, she says, not engaging with my joke. Her usual struggle with humor, or something else. I hate having to relearn her expressions from scratch. We wander away from the outer defenses into the city proper, towards a nearby courtyard where I suspect at least some of the people most interested in seeing Vita will be relaxing. The idea of a section of town designated exclusively to not be built in, an open space to be used for whatever public open space purposes people happen to need, irritated my sense of efficiency at first. Planning our city as if it were the same as Skyhope is a losing gambit, however, and I conceded that the benefits of such an area would likely outweigh the opportunity cost. I did not expect to find the open area so universally popular, however. We'll probably have to make more to keep morale up, because it's frequently too crowded. A space explicitly designated to have nothing in it is too crowded. Even now, I find myself surprised by people. Again. Lark barks ahead of us, she and a group of likely and unlikely friends all sparring together in the yard. Lark has been a blessing in many ways, fulfilling nearly everything I had hoped from her. As a straight physical combatant she's quickly proving she has no equal, at least in terms of raw potential. Carefully curated pools of monster flesh, both enhanced through biomancy and left natural, have proven her body can implement and often even improve on changes that add to her meals. We haven't agreed on any major upgrades, of course. Lark doesn't wish to risk physically altering her appearance any further, so her selection of meals is limited. I have managed to improve her already absurd muscular and skeletal structure, however, and we're working on figuring out ways to convince her body to implement its cut-anything spells to her claws and talons. Between her speed, her sensory range, her lack of need for sleep and her ability to set up a nearly limitless amount of webbing, Lark has been keeping our borders safe from forest incursion nearly single-handedly, a task that also has the benefit of improving her dangerously low self-esteem. Her expanded group of friends and peers has been doing the same. Of course, she still has a good relationship with her former Templar squad, particularly Xena. Managing the girl's bodily transfiguration is an enjoyable use of my free time, especially since she has been extremely enthusiastic about optimizing her form into something well beyond human. Once she got past the babbling incoherently and embarrassment stage, she's had no end of wild ideas, most of which I've then had to temper into something practical. Still, it pleases me to have someone share one of my more esoteric hobbies, as well as unambiguously consent to subjecting herself to them. Her body is nowhere near completed, currently stuck halfway between its original state and the final product, as I unfortunately cannot dedicate the time necessary to accelerate her transformation any more quickly. She was very insistent about wanting horns, despite my protests that they are rather useless structures unless she intends to start headbutting people. We compromised, so her horns are hollow and capable of holding highly pressurized water for use with her talent. She has a pair that curves around the sides of her head in a spiral, one that juts diagonally up from the center of her forehead and frequently gets caught in doorways, and two more which also emerge from the forehead on either side of the center one, but travel backwards across her scalp. This has obviously made her head quite heavy, particularly when all these horns are filled to capacity, so her neck muscles had to be the focus of density augmentations. The rest of her body is adapting much more slowly, and the daily changes to her physical capabilities are a large part of why she spars regularly with Lark. Of course, her modifications don't stop there. Inspired by Lark, Xena wanted 4 arms, which was sensible enough, so I acquiesced without argument, and oversized sharp teeth, which I pointed out was useless if she didn't intend to bite anyone, to which she did not respond and Bentley merely blushed. The teeth are mostly done growing, but her second set of forelimbs is only half finished, making them currently appear undersized and infantile. Also undersized is her tail, which to my pride and delight she wanted modeled after my own. She did, however, request that hers be fuzzy rather than scaled, and when I pointed out the many ways scales are a superior optimization, she simply informed me that fur is optimized for cuddles, and that is the most important optimization of all. Which is, of course, ridiculous. And vaguely offensive. I'm sure I would give great cuddles. I can freely adjust my body temperature. Good luck trying to do that with a ton of fur over-insulating everything. Still, it's her body, so she can design it to be inferior in function if she chooses. I'm still getting good practice and information out of the endeavor. The rest of her transformation is fairly straightforward so far, focusing on flushing out her old body's hormone patterns and replacing them, shaping the development of her feminine features, and the more direct process of removing and then subsequently growing her new genitalia. It's a slow affair, but one I've better optimized since. Well, the last time I did this to someone. Which was for rather less altruistic reasons. Fighting alongside Xena are some of Lark's other, more unexpected friends, Penta and Margaret. The 4 of them form quite the monstrous quartet, but Lark latched onto them almost immediately after settling here simply because the skeleton woman and the animavorozozoid don't smell very good to her senses, greatly inhibiting her natural desire to eat them. I believe she could digest them both if she made the attempt, but her reduced instinct to do so, likely because the souls are bound to substances other than meat, immediately made her more comfortable than usual around the pair. Add Margaret's ability to prepare undead meat rations for Lark to safely and ethically chow down on, not to mention Lark's ability to collect captured monsters for Margaret to add to our ever-growing undead army, and the 2 of them ended up spending a lot of time together and becoming fast friends. Oh. Vita coos. Lark's getting along with her aunts. Or, I guess maybe her nieces. The relative generational gap between them is somewhat unclear. I don't bother to suppress my sigh. Here we fucking go. Vita is back, and that means we get to randomly find out how basic aspects of reality have actually been a silly joke this entire time. You are implying that Vrothizo have a familial relationship with Nora, of all things? Well, yes. Vita confirms. They are definitely related to Nora. And also to the children of Nora, which is apparently the actual name for what you call Nora. Nora is the name of their creator. Who, happens to be a mana goddess. Like me. I should probably chat with her soon. She makes bioweapons and is really fucked up, but in a less cool way than you of course, and also she is my older sister kind of I guess. Sure, that may as well all be the case. Hey Margaret. Vita greets. Hey Penta. Hello Lark. What's up, Xavier? She goes by Xena now, I whisper quickly. I mean Xena. Vita quickly corrects, then turns to whisper back to me. Why'd she change her name? Because she changed her gender, Vita. No she didn't. I sigh. Well, we're firmly back in familiar territory, I suppose. Wait, is that Vita? Margaret gapes. Watches sweaty as scrag, she's back. She's back. The black-boned skeletal scorpion abomination gallops over to greet us, laughing gleefully as she tackles the dragon-scale armored royal warrior insect girl that was once a powerless street rat. Margaret's prodigious size barely even makes Vita redistribute her weight. She may as well have charged into a wall, though this particular wall happily wraps its arms around Margaret's spine and returns her hug. I've been gone for nearly 4 months, I died twice, and the best greeting you could think of was watches sweaty as scrack. Vita laughs. Seriously? Hey, I haven't exactly been workshopping this moment. Margaret protests, nuzzling her master with the upper ridges of her skull. I'm just so happy to have you back. Holy shit. Xena yelps, her recently grown teeth apparently still giving her a lisp. That single quote th Vita? It's Princess Vita now, actually, the lich corrects. Or Princess Molrosa, if you prefer. Molrosa. The name of the life she took and melded with hers. One she still, apparently, identifies with. It's worth remembering. Ooh, fancy, Xena grins, elbowing Penta. My former brain warden has grown substantially over the months, and now stands at about 4.5 feet tall. Your headmate single quote th a printheth now. Doth that make you thome kind of royalty? Categorically no. Vita answers cheerfully. Clear ones can't inherit. Good news, though, you're immortal. Well, you were, I guess. I was immortal. Until I died, Penta clarifies. Yep. Well, thanks for telling me, I suppose. Vita chuckles, seeming to take the ironic appreciation at face value. It's something I've seen her do before, even though she should be able to determine the veracity of a statement through her empathic abilities. Does she just not bother? It's nearly impossible to tell if she's paying attention or not. So, Vita says, turning to the last member of the group. You look like you're doing a lot better, Lark. Hi Twinny. She holds up all 4 of her hands, palms out. Lark glances at them, making no moves to approach. She's wearing her usual white silk shirt and pants, which quite a few people have come to her asking to commission sets of their own. I've personally gotten used to going without clothing, since it tends to restrict me without providing any benefit other than carrying capacity, which I only occasionally need. Nuba's is happy to carry things for me if the situation requires it. I like being able to just fight monsters at my leisure. Lark nods. Templar training was restricting and somewhat overcomplicated, in retrospect. I suppose it's good that you're alive. I suppose it is, Vita agrees awkwardly, her hands still up in the air, waiting for a slap that does not seem likely to ever arrive. I got you, Princess, Xena grins, reaching up her arms as best she can to complete the no doubt legendary high 20, though Vita has to lower her second pair of arms so Xena's still growing set can reach. Oh, yeah. Vita cheers. Welcome to the Monster Girl Club, Xena. Glad to be here. Xena confirms, bouncing happily. I can shoot water jets out of my horns. That's neat probably. Vita answers encouragingly. It is neat. I manage to smile a little. Such a boundless pile of energy, that one. It's no wonder she can actually keep up with Bentley. There are other people we need to say hello to, now, I announce. Ultrix will be furious if we don't go see her soon. Vitamin as well, of course, not to mention Rowan and your other siblings. And I'm sure Jalisa and Melissa will want to at least know you're around. And Theodora will come find us, I'm sure. Your giant Vrothizo and her partner ask about you non-stop as well, so they might. Penelope, Vita says, cutting me off. Come on. You're stalling. I scowl, letting my scales tint red. I am not, I say simply. I'm simply putting other people first. Yeah, well, I want to put you first. She crosses one pair of arms, the others coming to rest indignantly on her hips. Doubling up on stubborn posture, I see. I suppose there's no point in arguing with her if she insists on speaking with me before her own family. Very well, I sigh. What would you like to do, exactly? I want to talk to you, she says. Alone. I nod. I wanted to show her the rest of the town we've built in her absence, on the back of her efforts, as a safe place for the people she cares about most. The town that I de facto rule. I need to maximize my negotiating position and get her under control, before whatever conquering she intends to do starts putting us at odds. If that's a task I have to deal with now, before I'm fully ready, then so be it. Fine, I say. Come with me. I don't lead her anywhere important, just a nearby half-finished building that will be neither under construction nor occupied at this time of night. It's alone enough. What's so urgent, then? I ask her, crossing my own arms under my chest. Gah. I worked so hard on Vita's body, and now she doesn't even have it anymore. It's not a matter of urgency, she tells me. It's just You've been thinking of me like I'm a problem since I got here. I don't want to be your problem, Penelope, I want to be your solution. You have explicitly stated you are here to conquer the island on behalf of Iveric, I remind her. I wish to conquer the island on behalf of its people. Those two things don't have to be mutually exclusive, Vida insists. There's more than enough resources on Verdant to support both populations. And yet I fail to see a reason why we should support the genocidal insect creatures that have been systematically converting the animal matter of the island into destructive living bioweapons. They've already killed countless thousands. Okay, I mean. Yes, but they're my family now. They're nice and they love me and I love them and just. It's complicated, okay? Sure, they're a little xenophobic, but they're not unreasonable. Their society is amazing and they'll at least respect anyone we decide to make immortal. As long as I'm here, and I'm alive, the attacks will stop. We can wipe out the Vrothizo with their Nora's blessing, and we can just trade a little water and grain for the ability to keep existing. And we have plenty of those things. Vida, you literally lived as a starving orphan. Okay, well, we have plenty of water and we will have enough grain once we clear out enough of the forest. You and I can do that. I bet you've already figured out ways to curb the most dangerous encroaching flora species. I have, it's true. But she's rather missing the point. Or am I missing the point? How much food and water is worth reliable peace with a superior foe? Is it reliable peace, or will Iveric change their mind? Shit. I think I have to go along with it either way, because we need peace with Iveric. I've seen firsthand how they've been putting next to no effort towards their conquest against us. What we thought was suicidal desperation was actually just having their leftovers tossed thoughtlessly at our faces. The ease at which Vida crushed the High Templars we have remaining is clear evidence of that. I'll accept that basic compromise, I allow. What's the catch? There's no catch, she insists. As long as Liriope is getting the resources they need, this island is mine to do as I see fit. And? Well, you're a better leader than I am, Penelope. So I'm more or less here to put you in charge. Me, I repeat flatly. Will your newfound pride truly allow you to swallow that? Well, we'll definitely have to act like I'm in charge or the girls upstairs might metaphorically raise an eyebrow, but… yeah, of course. Of course I want you in charge. I don't think I'd allow anyone but you. Then you're a fool of colossal proportions, I answer flatly. I am an unstable mess of constantly reapplied animancy commands. I have personified myself as my own principles, and I frankly suspect that I will end up insane within a decade. And even if none of that were true, no, especially then, I would be a terrible candidate for leadership. The Penelope you knew was a sadistic, narcissistic, megalomaniacal sociopath who consistently failed to uphold any of the values she purported to believe in. Your judgment on proper leaders is clearly flawed. Vida's eyes reconfigure. I recognize this one. It's Joy. Why? Well, sure, I'll cop to being biased, she says. After all, I loved her. And I still love you. You don't even know me, I dismiss. And it would seem I no longer know you. You know half of me, she argues, and I think I still know at least half of you. That's better than a lot of couples I've seen. Truly, your standards for healthy interpersonal interaction are unrivaled, I deadpan. She barks out some more alien laughter at that, and I remember how beautiful her laugh was as a human. There was almost always an anger to it, a harsh edge hidden in the back of her mirth that drew me like a moth to candlelight. Now she's the moth, sitting before me and staring like I have fire in my eyes. Usually, I feel nothing at all when I think of her. Now, suddenly, I'm starting to feel an ache. But not joy. Not like I used to. Just an ache. I do not love you, I remind her. I am not sure that I can. We brought out the worst in each other, Vida. We enabled each other to drop deeper into the pit from which our worst sins crawled out. And we cuddled at the bottom, she says longingly. It was wonderful. Vida. Penelope, she presses. You got me out of that prison. I probably would have been there until I cracked, You know? Maybe even after that. You worked so hard for me. You spared me having to kill my own family. I know our relationship was weird, and different, and really confusing for both of us. I barely even did anything, but somehow, you made it work. You put in the effort for it, and so it worked. It's my turn to do that now. Is that okay? The ache again. Damn it. There's something missing which should be there. I suppose it's only natural that it hurts. If I had asked your permission to pursue you back then, you would have said no, I remind her. I did so anyway, knowingly. So who am I to stop you? Again, her eyes light up with joy. It's the only one I can identify now, but I'll learn every last expression she has. Thank you, she says. In that case, I have my first courting present. She loosens her armor, and while my mind immediately goes ballistic trying to figure out why she's getting naked, she actually leaves it all on and pulls out a hefty stack of papers from within it, handing them all to me. Here you go, she says. The advantages, disadvantages, unsolved problems, and of course methodology behind true biological immortality. I translated it by hand for you. She drops them into my claws, stunning me like I just hit a mountain at supersonic speeds. Almost automatically, I start leafing through it all, an impossible treasure trove of biomantic knowledge greeting me within the pages. It's not specialized for humans, but... oh, watcher. This is a very fucking good present. Drawing all the little diagrams was the hardest part, Vida says innocently, and I barely managed to peel my eyes away from her work to stare at her with utter disbelief. I have no words. There is nothing to say. You wanna stay here and read it while I go say hi to everyone? She asks, doubtlessly knowing that at this moment there is nothing else more important to me than these papers, the end goal of my entire life's work just casually handed to me with a joke and an alien smile. Why yes, I tell her. Thank you. She reaches up to pat me on the shoulder, perhaps because she is unable to reach my head, and strolls casually out of the half-built building, in which I will soon obtain the knowledge to become a god. I won't even last a 10-day against her, will I? That a social, impossibly dense little bug is going to woo me faster than I even worked up the courage to tell her I was interested. Whatever. Embarrassment is unproductive. I return to the first page, and I start to read. Told continued.